Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We're here for another preview show and we're looking forward to a stacked weekend of action. This podcast, as usual, is brought to you in association with McKeever's Teamwear, proud suppliers of all Armagh GA merchandise. And as always, the link to the McKeever's website is in the podcast description, so make sure to check out any of the Armagh gear available on the website. We have a big weekend ahead of us. We're going to hear from Joe Padden later on, and he's going to talk us through the Armagh and Mayo game this Sunday. But firstly, I'm joined by Armagh ladies fullback Clodagh McCambridge, and she's going to preview the Armagh and Cavan ladies game coming up also on Sunday this weekend. So Clodagh, I suppose finally is getting to play this game. It was called off last week because of the storm and the bad weather. It was just a disaster from start to finish last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we sort of knew going into it, like obviously everyone knew the weather wasn't going to be great last week. So, we kind of got word that we were going to have a backup just in case the athletic grounds wasn't fit to play. Obviously, there was a match then on the Saturday before. So we kind of knew Silverbridge was a possibility, but then obviously that didn't go ahead. But like those things are out of your control. Like you just have to prepare for it, and it just meant that we had an extra week then to get ready for the Cavan game. So it's fine.
So it was just like a disaster, as you say. There was always the possibility that it was going to be maybe moved venue or postponed or something. So maybe as we're a wee bit planned with it didn't come as a big surprise that the game was called off. So what did you do? Did you get a training session in, or did you maybe just have a week off?
Well, we got the text about 10 to say that the game wasn't going ahead. Like, so if we weren't getting a pitch for a game, we weren't getting a pitch for training. Like, so we ended up just doing bits and pieces by ourselves, whether it was like strength conditioning or a conditioning session, or just a bit of mobility or something to keep you ticking over. And then we were all together again then Tuesday for back on the pitch.
And you've got a good start to the league anyway. You beat Tyrone quite convincingly in the first round 2 weeks ago. 5-9 to 110, I think, was the final score. So good start to the season for you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think by that point everyone was just itching to get a proper competitive game again. And as you say, like great to get off to win. Like that's one of our targets for this year is obviously winning, getting out of Division 2, hopefully, getting promotion. Like, and it was good to get a good start then against Tyrone. We definitely started well. Got a few early goals and kind of settled us, and we racked up a good score, as you say. But definitely lots to improve on. We wouldn't be 100% happy with the way we played, like, but that's just things that we've been working on then over the past 2 weeks then to prepare for Cavan.
And you mentioned the 5 goals. I suppose Armagh get so much credit for their attack, and any team that has Amy Mackin in it, that's where the plaudits are all going to go. But as the full back, he's having a bad defence either.
Well, they get the credit they deserve, like the goals and games, as they say, like, but yeah, no, defensively, I suppose we didn't do too bad. I think they only got like maybe 3 scores from play, which was quite good, but at the same time we probably conceded a few too many frees than we would have liked. But no, defensively, it's definitely something we've been working on. We've been working on new defensive structures short of this year, so good to get a chance to kind of put those into play this time around.
And coming into this year, once again, the ladies went for a regional league, and having Kiva Morgan on the last couple of weeks, I was sort of saying to her that covering the game, it's frustrating that I'm always writing match previews for the same teams. It's always about Monaghan and Tyrone particularly, and Cavan as well. Last year, as a player, it must be frustrating that you're just playing the same teams over and over again, because I know last year you played Monaghan, Cavan, Tyrone in the league. You played Tyrone and Monaghan then in the Ulster Championship, and you had Monaghan in the All-Ireland series as well, and you have Monaghan obviously in the first round of the championship this year. So it's really just a merry-go-round of 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate why people are saying that it's a bit frustrating. Like, it's, well, I'm sort of happy enough. Like, I don't mind whoever I'm playing against, like, it's grand. But at the same time, it can be a wee bit monotonous, a bit repetitive, just constantly playing the same teams. Maybe, you could be marking different people and stuff each time, but yeah, it can get a wee bit tiresome, especially like obviously with Ulster and stuff, you would expect to be playing those teams, but in the league you would maybe like a wee bit of variation. But yeah, I suppose hopefully next year we'll be playing in Division 1 and won't be having those complaints anyway.
Yeah, fingers crossed now. Promotion's obviously the big thing, Clodagh, for Armagh. Is probably on the All-Ireland stage, you play all the top teams and you are recognised as one of the top teams, obviously, but to really push on now. Hopefully in the next couple of years, you probably need to be playing at that standard week in, week out.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of the things we've been eyeing up as, a major target for this year. As I say, we're definitely competitive whenever it comes to the championship, those latter stages of the year. But, we've been saying, why are we leaving it to then? Why can't we get the performances, in the league where we have to start from scratch every year? So I think this year there's been a real impetus on, getting those performances, not having to start from scratch and actually just improving on last year. Obviously there's things we have to work on and we've just kind of been focusing on them from the start of the year. But yeah, if we want to be competing against those top teams, we need to be playing in Division 1, playing those top teams week in, week out. But hopefully we can keep on the same track and keep getting the results that'll get us there next year.
And Calvin, this weekend, you'll go in heavy favourites. You do most weeks. You go into the game's favourites. But Calvin actually beat you last week, so it's not a foregone conclusion going to play Calvin this week.
Yeah, definitely not. We travelled to Breffni last year. As I said, beaten by a point, and it's tough going to play Cavan and Cavan, like it's a fortress for them. But yeah, they're going to be in a situation where this is going to be a must-win game for them as well. I think they were beaten in their first round, and they're going to come at us with everything. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for us to make amends for last year. Hopefully, get a win that would put us into a strong, position to get into a semi-final, which would be great. But we'll be expecting a tough game. Like Cavan are great at retaining possession, getting turnovers and run that year from deep, so it's just something we're going to have to prepare for. But really looking forward to it.
And that sort of system that they set up with, you obviously faced it last year. It sounds a bit similar to maybe what Meath done last year, that getting bodies back and then breaking hard on the counter. Is that something that we're going to see in ladies football maybe coming into it more often? We've seen it in the men's game for a long time now, the last decade or more maybe. Is that the ladies' game maybe going to go down that route, that defences packed and then breaking at pace?
It could be. I suppose like Meath obviously won the All-Ireland last year and they're probably going to set the benchmark then for this year. Teams will probably try and replicate that to a certain extent. So maybe it might be something that will creep more into the game, but yeah, we'll just have to try counteract that in some way.
And this weekend, you have home advantage again. Fingers crossed, the Athletic Grounds is going to be playable on Sunday. How big is that for you, to get playing in the Athletic Grounds and to get home advantage?
Oh, it's great. Like, especially, like I just said, playing Cavan at home or playing Cavan in their home, it's a tough game. Like, so very grateful to have the opportunity to play them in the Athletic Grounds. It's a place that, we really enjoy playing. I think we tend to play well whenever we get the opportunity to play in the Athletic Grounds. It's such a big, expansive pitch, like, and we can really move the ball quickly whenever we're playing there. But yeah, as you said, like, conditions could be the same as last week and we could be moved anywhere. So we'll just prepare for anything.
Fingers crossed that you get a run out in Athletic Grounds this week and there's no cancellations or nothing coming up this week. I suppose, Clodagh, a win on Sunday really puts you, it'll put you top of the table again. I know Monaghan, they enjoyed another win against Tyrone last weekend, so they're sitting top at the minute with 2 wins from 2. If Armagh can get a win this weekend, it leaves a top of the table clash against Monaghan then for the final round.
Yeah, which, it would be great to get that win, and then, you've got a bit of comfort that you're pretty much, well, hopefully guaranteed a semi-final position, takes a bit of pressure off. But obviously we'll go out to win every game, and if you ended up in a semi-final as a result of that, that's just an added bonus. But yeah, no, it'll be a good game, hopefully.
And the promotion talk, I suppose, it's Armagh's just in a good run of form at the minute, with the hurlers, the footballers and the ladies all sitting top of their respective leagues. There's a real good feel good factor, it seems, around Armagh at the minute, and particularly the ladies football, which I suppose the success of the last couple of years, getting to the All-Ireland semi-final and the quarter-final last year, then back-to-back Ulster titles. There just seems to be a real good feel factor around the whole ladies football at the minute in Armagh. Yeah,
definitely. I think obviously, like, winning breeds confidence, and confidence just makes you feel good, and everyone's really enjoying their football at the minute. And I think that just kind of encourages, good playing, even better winning, or even better results. But yeah, no, I think everyone's really looking forward season ahead. Pre-season's gone really well, and then we're just getting the chance then to kind of go out and show what we've been working on over the past few months. So yeah, everything's positive from here.
Joe, that's brilliant. Thanks very much for coming on and joining us. And as I said, with Joe Padden coming up next, and he's going to look forward to the Armagh and Mayo football game coming up on Sunday. Clodagh, best of luck, and hopefully Armagh can get the win then on Sunday.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Joe, great to have you on. And as I say, a former Mayo and Armagh footballer. I suppose we'll talk a bit about your transfer and your time coming up to play in the Orchard County before we get into this Sunday's game. I suppose just tell us how did it come about? You obviously come up to live in Armagh for a couple of years.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Sean. I suppose it's a long time ago now. I'm living in Newry since 2008. That I got married. My wife Olivia is from Newry, and I was still traveling up and down to Mayo for a couple of seasons. I think I played for Mayo up until I can never get the years right. Maybe 2009 or 10. I was still traveling back to play for my home club, Balmullet. But then I said I had enough of the traveling, and I transferred to Carrickcruppen, and that was it really. My intention was to finish playing with Mayo and just play out the remainder of my career with Carrickcruppen. I think I was probably around 30 or whatever at the time, and just by pure chance, I don't even remember the call. Paddy Rourke was the Armagh manager, and he just kind of said, "Would you be interested in coming in?" And like the main thing that turned me off playing for Mayo was the traveling the distances up and down. So I thought, yeah, that's a great opportunity. Great chance to meet new people, especially when you move into a new area. Very often, when you're involved in the GA community, that's what you want to do and continue to do that. So I really enjoyed it and had a great time. Was honoured to be given the opportunity, and in some ways, it's one of the things that I'm most proud of in that I was able to come out, do my best for Armagh, and in the way Armagh supporters treated me through the whole thing and since has been really, I suppose, humbling in some ways, because everyone has always treated me with such great respect, and I really enjoyed it, and I love going back to Armagh games and meeting people that I would have seen at games when I was playing. So it's great to get back, and as well as that, living here in Newry, I'm backing over to the athletic grounds to games nearly more regularly than I'm going to some Mayo games. So it really is good.
I was going to ask you, how did you find Armagh when you come up? And I suppose Armagh were in a different place then. They were in, or they've come back. They were in Division 1, and you sort of joined before the doldrum years, Division 2 and 3. The peak years had obviously gone at that stage, but they were still competing at a good level. I think you were involved in 2011. They were playing Division 1. 2012 as well. They were eventually relegated.
Yeah, that's my only claim to fame is that I keep bringing this up, as I've never played in any other division other than Division 1, whether with Mayo or Armagh. So I'm proud of that. It might be one of the only things I'm proud of. But it's very similar. And people used to ask me that. Even some of the Armagh lads would ask me when I was playing, would you have been doing things differently down in Mayo in terms of your preparation or your strength and conditioning? And I was kind of boring answer. No, we're generally doing the same things and similar levels. But again, at that time with Armagh, you still had real quality players there with Stevie McDonald, Aaron Kernan, players like that, and even I still see some like Aidan Forker, Roy Grugan were on the squad then, and they're still going strong, and they've put together some great careers as well. So really quality team, probably maybe not as strong obviously as Armagh were in the decade before that, and unfortunately weren't able to do more in the Ulster Championship. But again, I really enjoyed it and I made many friends.
And how did you find playing against Mayo? You played and beat Mayo in 2011. That must have been a strange experience for you.
It was awkward, that's for sure. Yeah, I felt it. I remember on the bus going down, the bus driver asked me, "Where is this hotel?" It was like, because I was the tour guide as well on the way to Mayo, trying to navigate where we were staying the night before the game. But it was good. It was a bit odd because it was so quickly removed. I played for Mayo the season before. But it was interesting. I think as it happened that day, we managed to get a win. I think Stephen McDonald got a couple of great long-range scores in a low-scoring game. As it happened, I think I played sweeper, so it was a handy enough role. I enjoyed doing that. I remember lining out full forward on Ger Kafke, played fullback for Mayo for years, and he was saying, I just said, "Well, hi, Ger, I won't be here for too long. I'm heading down the other end of the field." But yeah, so I didn't really have to go man on man with anyone I knew too well, so it wasn't too bad. It was great to get the win when you go back. You know, you always those personal things. You know, they take over. You know, no matter where your county of your birth is, it's always nice to get one over personally. So I was particularly satisfied on the journey back north after that game.
And your time in Mayo, you did already have a wee bit of a link with Armagh. I'm talking about John Morrison being involved in 2006 when he's got to the All-Ireland final. Of course, that great game against Dublin in the semi-final, and in the Hill 16, warming up in Hill 16 and stuff like that. And Mickey Moran obviously involved as well. But you had that link with Armagh through John Morrison at that stage.
Yeah, I suppose it's funny the way the things work out. I remember one of my most favourite days ever in Croke Park was the day Armagh won the All-Ireland, and I had no connection to Armagh. I just happened to be lucky enough to be there. So I always remember that. But yeah, John was there with Mickey Moran in 2006, and we had a great year with Mayo that year in terms of just some of the big days we had, some of the performances we were able to put in. And just the atmosphere of the season with Mickey and John, and the season we put together, something totally different with, I suppose, two coaches from Ulster who had no real connection to Connacht football or to Mayo. It was like a breath of fresh air, and the players all really embraced it. And you had a real fondness for both men in terms of the way they wanted to look after you, the way they wanted to improve you, but then the quality of their coaching. And that's the thing that has to stand out. They were absolutely exceptional at what they did in terms of the coaching. Some of it was off the wall, but we embraced it, and it served us well. And we had a really, really good time. And I remember, you know, I think it's, of all the seasons I played with Mayo, it's the one I look back on most fondly. And a lot of the times when you look back, you think of the big moments in games and this and that. We big win against Dublin, obviously disappointing loss against Kerry in All-Ireland final. But in many ways, the things that I enjoyed most about that game was just turning up at training, and just the nights of training we had with those lads, because training was so fresh, so interesting. And yeah, it was something that I look back on really, really fondly.
And looking ahead to this weekend then, Billy Joe, no real history. It was easy the last couple of weeks in the podcast talking about Monaghan and Tyrone, because Armagh play them maybe twice a year for the last couple of years. Mayo, the met in 2019, of course, that qualifier game down in Castlebar. Maybe if there had been a couple of minutes left, Armagh feel they could have won that game, but lost by a point. I was just looking through the teams today. There's a couple of changes in the Armagh team. Paul Hughes isn't there anymore. Jamie Clark's obviously gone, but you know, the majority of the players are still there. Mayo's a completely different team. And just read through some of the lists that aren't there anymore. David Clark was in nets. Chris Barrett, Keith Higgins, Colin Boyle, Andy Moore, and they all started. Donald Vaughan come on. So this is probably a new team coming along for Mayo now. And there's no real talk of a transition or nothing in Mayo, but there's a lot of players gone from even 2019 and a lot of new fresh faces in.
Yeah, from Mayo's point of view, I think you have to look at it, and it's a real strength of maybe club football in Mayo, of underage football in Mayo, and definitely of James Horan. His ability to keep replenishing the squad with high quality young players. Even last week against Dublin, you had Donnacha McHugh played, Rory Brickenden played, Aidan Orme played, Paul Towie played, and all those lads in Croke Park in Dublin, you know, put in a decent shift. Jack Carney as well, he ended up getting the goal. So he seems, James Horan has a brilliant, I think his track record is second to none in terms of bringing players up to a real high Division 1 inter-county standard level. And that's what he's been able to do, and being able to replace the likes of Chris Barrett and Keith Higgins. Well, you can't really replace, you know, Keith Higgins and even Colin Boyle. You know, they're all-time greats in a Mayo sense. But when you look at then that Oisin Mullen has still plenty of football to play, Paddy Durkin has still plenty of football to Mayo. They have been able to retain a strong squad. When I look at Armagh, I look back at that game in 2019, you see so much promise. You see all the ability that they have, and you can really see how Kieran McGeeney has been building, you know, over those years to get to where they are now, which is in a situation where they've got all those players that were younger back then, whether it be Gerard Yogue or Aidan Nugent, you know, the O'Neills, Stephen Sheridan, players like that, Paddy Burns, that now they're in a position where they have experience, and it's about driving on now. It's about retaining their status in Division 1. They look to have that done in a very impressive fashion. And I think what Armagh people, considering the success that Armagh had historically over the last, when Armagh had that really strong team in the Ulster Championship, now's the time to really challenge in Ulster and get back there in the among the top 2 or 3 as a perennial challenger for that title each year. And I think they're in that space now, and that's to Kieran McGeeney's credit, in that he's identified the sort of players he's wanted. He's worked with them over a number of years, and they've improved year on year, and they're reaping the rewards of it now.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for Armagh this year is, and Geezer keeps reminding fans about it's only February, don't be getting carried away. But if Armagh see out a decent league campaign for the next few games, and really it's pushing on in the championship, has to be the goal for them now. And I suppose Mayo, this is maybe the first big test that there's going to be no excuses this week, because there was excuses maybe against Dublin that, Dublin are in transition. Tyrone were just off a winning the All-Ireland. They were a bit hungover, There's no excuses this week. If Armagh can beat Mayo this weekend, Mayo's flying the same way Armagh are. It's going to mean a lot if Armagh can get one over here.
Yes, I think it'll be easier for Kieran to maybe get the message across to his players that he'll be saying, we were lucky enough in Monaghan, didn't play well in the first half. Maybe Mayo will be coming in on the other side of it, feeling really a bit cocksure of themselves, considering the big win in Croke Park against Dublin. So I think the motivation side of it is in Armagh's favour. But you're right, it is a real test for them. And there are probably certain aspects of the matchup that you may want to talk about, but there'll be areas that Armagh will be trying to target. And there'll be areas that they have to guard against, because Mayo similarly, seem to try to do the same things in each game. Dominate that middle third in terms of the run on the ball and that power that they have running through that area there, and trying to create a platform from that situation. And it'll be interesting to see how Armagh can counteract that.
Yeah, and I suppose from Mayo's point of view, they're coming off a huge win against Dublin, a very meaningful and significant win. Obviously not as big as the semi-final last year, but to beat Dublin twice in a row, twice in Croke Park, they're bound to be thinking, maybe it's their time now, that they're ahead of Dublin. Perhaps, I don't know, I'm not putting any predictions on the table for Mayo and the All-Ireland contenders, but it's bound to mean a lot for them to finally get on top of Dublin and to beat them 2 in a row.
Yeah, unfortunately for Mayo, until this team has been in so many All-Ireland finals and have yet to get over the line, that I don't think they can rest until that has been achieved. So in some ways, I don't know if you can really enjoy some of these victories until they get to where they need to get to, considering what they've done over the last 10, 15 years. I think if nothing else, it's a huge positive for Mayo in that you've beaten them in the championship recently. You've beaten them in the league recently, because Mayo's record against Dublin in particular in the league has been horrific. Basically, getting hammerings year on year. So if nothing else, Mayo will not have to hear that terrible stat like that they haven't beaten Dublin in 10 years or whatever, and 10 times in Dublin, whatever it was, even more than that. So that's out the window. Again, as I said earlier on, I think the real positive for Mayo, what they'll take away from last Saturday, was the performance of younger players, the emergence of young players. We mentioned David Clark and Colin Boyle a couple of moments ago, whereas now you're seeing, not new players as such, but this Mayo team has nearly been driven on by Ryan O'Donoghue, Oisin Mullen, Matty Ruan, players that are probably only really in their 3rd or 4th seasons, maybe 3rd season. And that's again showing that James Horan's ability to get those players from newcomers up to real high standard inter-county Division 1 footballers, and that's the real positive for Mayo.
And you mentioned Oisin Mullen there. How big is it to have him back? Like, I think the whole country was nearly heartbroken when they seen that he's such a special talent, and he's a talisman now nearly for Mayo. He's maybe going to be Lee Keegan's replacement, although I don't know if Keegan needs replaced just yet, but he's that sort of player. He's that exciting player that everybody wants to watch. So it's obviously a big advantage that he stayed around.
Yeah, there's only one Lee Keegan, and that's for sure. He's a unique beast, that man. It's huge, though. You're right. He's a player that, look, particularly when you come off losing an All-Ireland, Mayo, losing 2 All-Irelands in a row, you're kind of wondering, well, like, how many more knocks can they take, and keep coming back? So that was a huge boost just to the supporters to recognise that you're not losing a quality player like that. And as a supporter, you want to see the best players playing for your county. Unfortunately for Mayo, for a number of years, missed out on that with Pierce Hanley playing Aussie rules throughout his whole career. Maybe played 1 year with Mayo and then went off and played successfully with, I think, Brisbane Lions and Gold Coast. So he was a huge loss to Mayo football. He was a very successful AFL player. And to see that Oisin Mullen had decided to stay, I think it gives a boost to the squad in that it's something he's committed to doing. That I think I mentioned that Eamon Fitzmaurice mentioned on the broadcast of the Mayo game on RTE that Oisin Mullen deciding to stay basically says, and I hadn't looked at it like this, that he thinks this Mayo team is going to win an All Ireland, and he's right. And why else would you stay other than to be part of a Mayo team that wins an All Ireland? And that's a boost mentally. In terms of what he brings to the team, that pace, power, that ball carrying ability. He's actually very good with the ball over his head, so around the middle of the field. And I think where James Horan played him on Saturday evening is where he's at his best. In central positions, driving forward. He got a great point early on. And again, lots of Mayo supporters love the way he plays football. He gets injured late on and does everything he can to try and stay on the field. And all supporters is the same, really. When you see somebody that invested in playing for their county, trying that hard to play for your county, then you add the fact that he turned down a professional contract to stay at home, play for your county. He's nearly has more likability now for Mayo supporters.
And the likes of him and Lee Keegan and Paddy Durkin, I don't think he played on Saturday night, available if he's injured or what the story is. But for forwards, if somebody like you maybe playing in the half forward line, Billy Joe, and Lee Keegan's picking you up like that, it must just be a disaster having to mark and track people like that. And Lee Keegan possibly could be picking up Rian O'Neill. I would imagine it's either going to be him or Stephen Cohen perhaps picking him up. But if it's Lee Keegan, Rian O'Neill knows that he's going to have to spend a big part of the game tracking Lee Keegan and chasing back to his own defence.
It will be interesting to see what way Mayo and Armagh treat that. I think Armagh are in a better situation the more they can leave Rian in close to goals, because he's exceptional. There's no doubt about that. And if he plays in close to goals, Mayo have a couple of options there. Now, whether they'll be able to manage him because he's such a good player, I'm not sure. Maybe it would be Lee Keegan. It could be Cohen. The one thing that Mayo seems to try to do, and you alluded to it there, is that if Rian finds himself playing in the middle third for a lot of that, Mayo will try and run off that. Whether it's Lee Keegan, whether it's Paddy Durkin, not so much Stephen Cohen, definitely Oisin Mullen, that if either of them mark him there, they'll attack and try and ensure that he has to defend in his own half, which is not what you want Rian O'Neill doing. You want him saving his energy for creating scores for Armagh in the attack and third. So that will be really, really interesting. And I think Armagh will be in a better position if they can keep him close to goal and leave Mayo have to make a decision. Well, who picks him up? Is it, as you said, Keegan or O'Hora or Cohen? Probably players that could do that job. But again, it's a very difficult task, and that's something that's kind of some of the more interesting things about those matchups is that Mayo are quite flexible around the half forward line, around midfield in terms of what they do there. But they have to be a bit more careful about what they do in their full back line, because they probably don't have the strength and depth in that area of the field.
And in round the middle of the field, I had Aaron Kiernan on our review show on Tuesday, and he was saying about the Monaghan press. Monaghan really pressed Armagh's kick out and had great joy off it, the real physical around the middle of the field. They put 2 men on Rian O'Neill. Rian sometimes comes out to the 45 for that big long option over the press. They put 2 men on him, and that dissolves that plan. Mayo are probably better at doing that than Monaghan are. They're probably the best team at doing that in the country, and their forwards are dogs when it comes to tackling. They love it, like Ryan O'Donoghue and them love defending. So is that what you see Mayo doing here? Are they going to really squeeze Armagh's kickouts and put Blaine Hughes under huge pressure?
I think so. I think generally, I think you're right. I think Mayo have probably pressed kickouts, more than any other team in the last number of years. They're probably more comfortable doing it. I think they can be got at over that long kick out, which was something that was very costly for them, the All-Ireland final last year, where I think, was it the McKenna goal came from a long kick out that went over Matty Ruan. So they have to be careful in that regard, and that might be something where Armagh could have joy if Rian O'Neill can get on some of those long kickouts. But you would imagine that that's something that Mayo would be prepared for, considering how well Monaghan did it the last day. But I suppose just looking at my ex-clubmate Blaine Hughes he's very confident and he's not afraid to take a risk. And I think sometimes in those situations, the goalkeeper, you just have to take a risk with those short kickouts if you can get them out. Armagh will probably try and do that, hope that none of them goes tragically wrong. But the Armagh will have to be better on those ones where Mayo shut down the short kick-out option and they have to go long. That's kind of an area, I think, in the game this year that's going to be more prevalent because more and more teams become more comfortable pressing the opposition kick-out. I think that there'll be more avenues there for it to have a big ball winning midfielder as that outlet at times. And you're right. There were times when Armagh got a short kick out to Aidan Forker. He's very strong possession, great ball carrier. He was able to keep it away from Monaghan men and move it side to side. They gradually got the ball out. But it took 6, 7, 8 passes to get the ball outside your own 45. And that's energy sapping. But as you rightly point out, the Mayo forwards are probably better than anyone at tackling in those situations. But they're not as strong as they would be if Cillian O'Connor and if Tommy Conroy are in there in that full forward line. Because if you had that full forward line with Ryan O'Donoghue, you're probably talking about the best tackling full forward line in the country, as they're all got a bit of toughness in them, and they're not happy dishing out some of the punishment as well. And Ryan O'Donoghue is an excellent tackler in those situations. But that's definitely an area I think Mayo will target. But it's obvious for Armagh at this stage that that's an area of their game that are going to have to improve on. And maybe they'll change their tack completely when you consider that the players that they have out the field and at their disposal, that I rate very highly in terms of the ball over their head, like Charlie Oak can win over his head. Obviously, Reen can do that. Stephen Sheridan's out there. Mackin, you have Grimley, Niall Grimley on the bench as well, good over his head, can come in and do a job for you there. So maybe early on the stage you'll see something slightly different from Armagh. They'll go longer more often just to try and throw Mayo off track, and I think that might be a decent approach. I think
are Mayo likely to go man with Armagh? We've seen Dublin do it. Is that something we could see? Because Armagh obviously they get men back, but they love kicking the ball as well. Is that something we can see? Will Armagh get joy if Mayo go man to man?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. Mayo have changed things defensively over the last couple of games. For the first time, they started both games against Donegal and Monaghan quite poorly, and for lots of that they were man on man in the full back line, and they've had to change things through an injury to Brendan Harrison. And Brendan Harrison is the best man marking defender that Mayo have in the full back line. He's a top quality player, just unfortunately with injuries, and he's a hamstring injury at the minute and has missed too much football over the last 2 seasons. But against Dublin, they kind of decided, well, you know what? You play that position, and whoever comes in there, pick them up. And it wasn't so much about matchups; it was about comfort in playing in that area of the field. Like Keegan stayed in, as I said, Oisin Mullen stayed in the middle of the field. Brickenden got a role. McHugh stayed the wing back. It's as much to do with the inexperience of some of those players. And I imagine it was so successful for them in Dublin and Croke Park in the wide open space that they'll do something similar against Monaghan. Apart from Rian O'Neill, I think they will have a matchup for Rian, and they won't want a situation where he's physically dominating some younger player. So I think you're right. O'Hora is very strong if he's playing. Lee Keegan is very strong. Cohen's very strong. One of those three will be picking him up. It might change depending on where he is on the field. If he's out the field, it might be, if he's out at centre forward, they might leave Cohen there. If he goes out to midfield, they might send Lee Keegan out there because Lee is so dangerous attacking, and then if he's on the edges where it's more than likely going to be Lee or O'Hora if he plays. But other than that, I think what James Horan will say is that you've got a comfort level playing left half back, whether it's Paddy Durkin, whether it's Duncan McHugh, whether it's Oisin Mullen, and you wait there no matter which Armagh forward comes into that area.
And Billy Joe, on every preview show now, we do our combined 15. So we've been looking at the Armagh and Mayo players, and we'll start obviously with the goalkeeper. And we're going to go with Rob Hanley, who is probably up there at the minute. We've been speaking the last couple of weeks about Morgan and Bagan being up there. I'm not sure if Hanley's at that stage yet, but he's certainly up there, and he's going to get our number 1 spot.
Yeah, well, that's hard for me to say now. I'm sure I'm going to hear this from Blaine now the next time I see him, if he listens to the podcast, that I didn't give him the. But I suppose they were both ex-teammates of mine, so I have that loyalty on both sides. That Rob was on the Mayo panel for a season or two while I was still there. That's how long he's around. But I think in some ways, Rob Hindley's form this season, he had a really good season last year, but he's been exceptional through these first 3 league games. He's man the match against Donegal, got the tying score to level it up. But it was one area of his game that it's probably the weakest aspect of his, as a high ball that's coming into the square, that he has to make up a decision whether to attack it, to move forward onto it. And in that Donegal game, he came out on balls and made the right decision, whether it was either to field it or to punch it away. Again, in the last couple of minutes of the Dublin game, the last day, he punched the ball away, which was the right decision. Excellent shot stopper. Really good kickouts. He's become much more confident in that aspect of his game, takes more time, not as pressured to get the ball out. And then his long range free taking has been the best it's ever been. So I can understand he gets the nod ahead of Blaine just at this stage, even though I'm sure I'm going to hear about it.
Hopefully not too hard on you, Billy Joe. Our full back line then, with Aidan Falker, Oisin Mullen and Lee Keegan. And we spoke about Mullen and Keegan and Falker's Armagh's version of them. He's a man-marking defender, but he can go up and he gets on the score sheet regularly as well. And probably when you would have played with Aidan Falker, he was more of a working half forward, and now he's Armagh's best man marker. We've seen him with Maher, he's their best attacker. He's a man who can do everything.
Yeah, some of his most impressive work has been for Mahery and getting scores, and he's just an all-round really, really good footballer. I think that in other circumstances, maybe if Armagh had stronger, more strength and depth in the full back line, he might be playing somewhere else. He's that good a footballer. He's the sort of player that you're going to get him onto the field at all costs, wherever you play him. He's got the mentality, he's got the strength, he's got the aggression, he's got a great left foot. I suppose looking at your full back line there, I can't really argue, and I think all 3 players would probably be on your combined Mayo team. But the only thing I would say, I mentioned Brendan Harrison earlier on. I think Brendan Harrison is probably the best man marker either county has, if he can stay on the field. So that's the only area maybe where I would offer some difference.
On our half back line then, with Paddy Durkin, Stephen Cohen and Charlie O'Burns, he was probably quiet against Monaghan, but has had a really good year this year with Armagh. And Stephen Cohen, I suppose, he maybe goes under the radar a wee bit in the Mayo defence because of the defenders of the calibre we have spoke about. But I think he's the captain this year. He's a real leader in that Mayo defence, and we could possibly see him physically matching up to Rian O'Neill or perhaps Oisin O'Neill if he starts on Sunday.
Yes, and that is one of the skills that he has in a half-forward line. That I remember one of his most impressive outings as a young player was coming off the bench in an All-Ireland final in the second half to man mark Jim McConnelly and did a great job. I can't remember which one of that was 16 or something like that. He's everyone in Mayo touts for his leadership ability. He's captained Mayo to minor and under 21 All Irelands. He's captain of the senior team this year. Maybe his run will continue. All Mayo supporters will be looking for that. He has had a slow start to the league campaign. Wasn't really that good against Monaghan. Was taken off early, but came back strongly last week against Dublin. It was really outstanding last year. You can't say anything more about Paddy Durkin. He's one of the very best footballers in the country, in my opinion. Top 6 or 7 players on his game. He's absolutely outstanding. And Charlie Oak's such a brilliant footballer. I remember playing club football against him. He could play anywhere. Great ball carrier. I'd like to see him continue to carry the ball forward more. He has that athleticism. He's big and strong. And he can shoot. And if there's one criticism I could have of him in the game last year, he had an opportunity to just take a shot on his left foot early on. He tried to work it in. In those situations where those counter-attacking situations, I think he should maybe look at somebody like a Paddy Durkin and say, well, Paddy Durkin finds himself in that situation and gets 2 scores a game. That should be Charlie Oak's target because he's that good. He has that ability to get forward from those positions and get big scores. And I think that's the next step for him. But you're right, he's been outstanding so far.
And in midfield then with Matty Uran, obviously it's such a big season last year, and with Oisin O'Neill then as well, who Armagh fans delighted to see Oisin O'Neill back. We keep talking about Armagh's strength and depth on the good bench to have. I don't think anybody wants to see Oisin O'Neill coming in off the bench. He's one of the best players in the county. He should be starting when fit. He will be starting. So it's a huge boost for Armagh to have Oisin O'Neill back, hopefully getting more game time this weekend then.
Yeah, and as I said earlier on, I think there's going to be more necessity to have strong players that can catch the ball over their heads in midfield situations this season, because short kickouts I think will be much harder to get out as teams get better at pressing the opposition kickout. Again, one of his great abilities is he's such a good right boot, whether that's in shooting, whether that's passing the ball into the forward line. Really, really good footballer, and I'm interested to see how when he gets back into a starting role, whether he can continue to develop that. Of course, obviously, he has a great relationship with his brother Reen, and the way they work together is sometimes really good to see. Manny Ruan has been, he's a phenomenal athlete, big, strong, covers every blade of grass on the field. A real nightmare to mark if you're trying to cover him attacking, because he just seems to plow up and down the middle of the field and get on the end of stuff. Again, the last day, first game back all season, he's 2 scores, 2 points got early on, and very lucky not to have another goal. I think he's really up there in terms of, with Brian Finton and as the best one of the best 2 or 3 midfielders in the country. And a lot of that is down to his athleticism and his ability to get around the field, to get forward with scores. But and another player like that I mentioned earlier on, that James Horan has helped improve no end under the last 3 seasons.
On the half forward line then, with Rory Grugan, who has made, I think he's made all our combined 15 so far in the league. With Aidan O'Shea at centre half forward, and Dermot O'Connor, who is obviously one of the leaders on the Mayo team as well. But I suppose I want to talk about Aidan O'Shea, Billy Joe, and his role this year seems to be going to change. And I don't know how you feel about him playing full forward. I don't think they used him enough, and certainly in the final, he had a couple of times one-on-ones with Ronan McNamee and the ball wasn't put into him. Is he going to be an impact sub this year, or how are they going to use him?
Well, it has worked really well that him coming off the bench and playing midfield. I think his best position is midfield. I think people went away from that through the years of where you had to beat that exceptional Dublin team in Croke Park, where it was like the athleticism was unbelievable and you had to be able to run for sideline to sideline for 76, 77 minutes. And that's difficult for somebody as big as Aidan O'Shea is. I think, as I said, this year, I think there'll be more leeway for him to just play midfield this season and have the impact. But it may be a case of where you just bring him in for the last 25 minutes in every game in midfield, and he's able to win possession, use that experience. He's a great tackler, brilliant tackler, and just keep the ball moving and contest kickouts. So that might be his role, and that might be the role that he's most effective in for Mayo. And I think that it's hard to argue against that when you consider how well it's gone for Mayo over the last three games. Look, Rory's an exceptional player. Lucky enough to play with him. He's improved, I think, year on year. He always had that scoring ability off his left boot to score. His work rate seems to get stronger and stronger each season in terms of the ability to cover ground. And then he has that versatility where he can really do a job for you anywhere in an attacking sense. He can go in on the edge of the square in corner forward, play 10, 15 minutes for you in there, and he knows exactly what to do. That's down to his intelligence. Excellent passer, absolute. You're watching the game and he gets the ball in the wing. You know it's a diagonal ball, you know it's coming, but you still can't stop it. And that's something that maybe you mentioned earlier on that I should have built onto that. I've been very impressed with the way Armagh have got the ball quickly into the forward line, and the player coming out winning the ball has a load of options. Players coming at diagonals, players coming off the shoulder, option to turn and shoot himself or lay it off to somebody close to him, and that's a real positive for Armagh. I think that's one area where they can really hurt Mayo if they can do that. And Rory Grugan, Oisin O'Neill, players with real Jarly Og with real good kick passing ability in the middle third can help facilitate that sort of game plan for you. So they're going to be huge, and I think Rory's probably the best that they have at that. Dermot O'Connor, for Mayo, one of the best half forwards in the country for a number of years. A real couple of down seasons the last couple of seasons, and you're just kind of wondering, well, is he physically able to still put in that effort? But like his performance against Dublin, he was my man of the match last weekend. And I think there's one key difference to maybe what we'd seen in the past, that he stayed central a lot of it. We'd seen him before as 12 out of 12, hugging the touch line, covering ground from there. Whereas the last day, he stayed in the middle of the field. He's evolved to picking up breaks. He's really intelligent. He was the creator of both goals, really, with the pass in for the goal that Orm got, the flick up and the hand pass for the Jack Carney goal. Wonderful skill, wonderful awareness. And that's a real positive sign for Mayo. And I'm delighted for him because he put so much into playing for Mayo. So yeah, I can't really argue there with a lot of what you're doing in the half forward line. Maybe now, I have a soft spot. Maybe Soupy Campbell and the sort of unpredictability that he brings. Again, I'm biased as I played with him, and I love to see him coming on because he can create something from nothing. He's a very dangerous player. Still has so much to offer. So many scores that he can get for Armagh, and I know that he's very highly rated down in Mayo. Everyone talks about him, and he's such a dynamic footballer, and they'll have a plan for him when he comes off the bench if he doesn't start.
I think remembering back, Soupy was incredible that day against Mayo in 2019. It was his point near the end that sort of brought them back into it.
Everyone talks about Soupy down Mayo because they're just, he's the sort of player that people in Mayo love as well. He's got flair. He does stuff off the cuff. He could take you on a solo run. He could take a long range point. He's good in the air. All the things that Mayo supporters love to see. He's he would have been loved down in Mayo. Yeah, that's for sure.
If he comes on and scores the winner on Sunday, maybe not be as loved as much.
Yeah, that might be the end of the love affair with Soupy. Yeah.
So with our full forward line then with Rian O'Neill, Cillian O'Connor and Ryan O'Donoghue. I want to talk about Cillian O'Connor, like obviously a disaster last year, him missing out on missing the run to All-Ireland, missing the final. Is he, any word on him, any updates on him? Is he ready to go, or has he been held back just for a couple of games, or what's the story with Cillian O'Connor?
Well, if you talk to Cillian, he'll tell you that he'll be playing in Hyde Park. I think they're having a trouble holding him back, that he's so keen to get back into it. Now, a lot of inter-county camps, it's hard to get real truthful information out about recoveries and injuries. But I think the feeling was that he might make it back for the last 2 rounds of the league, and I haven't heard anything that's any different to that. Really personal blow for him, because he got himself back in such excellent shape. He had such injury difficulties for a number of seasons there, between shoulders, knees, ankles, and then he got a clean bill of health for 2 seasons and was back to his absolute best. The season before last, I think he was top scorer in the championship, absolutely outstanding throughout, and his performances throughout that season no doubt was a help to emerging players like Ryan O'Donoghue and Tommy Conroy. He's nothing to prove, all-time top scorer in the championship. He's just a machine, he scores, and I've no doubt he's going to come back and continue in that vein. Ryan O'Donoghue is a club mate of my own down in Balmullet in County Mayo. So, he's a player we're all very, very proud of. He's a player that always had a lot of ability, was a great soccer player, great boxer in his youth. He's not the biggest. He's very strong for his size. He's very brave for his size. He's a really complete footballer for his size, can win balls over his head. But the one thing that's absolutely remarkable about him is that every year he just gets better and better and better. And some aspect of his game, you can actually see it over the course of the season, gets better and better. Just for an example, maybe a couple of seasons ago, he wouldn't have been that long range or a consistent of a shooter. Now he's kicking frees in Croke Park for Mayo in All-Ireland finals, and he's nailing them, and he's confident in that regard. Absolutely brilliant player. And I think a club mate of my own said, if every player that went into a county panel improved like he does, well, then you'd have some standard of inter-county football, because he's just got so much better, and he's a real leader for Mayo now. But Rian O'Neill deserves to be there. I think he's one of the most exciting players in the whole country. I think that when you look at the skill set that he has, that I think any supporters, the people that support good football, see the skills that he has, his ability to win his own ball. He can bring other players into the game with his kick passing ability, really good hands in to tackle. He's big and strong, that he can keep the ball away from tacklers and get hand pass away. But really, what it all comes down to is his ability to kick the ball is absolutely frightening. He strikes frees like if he's playing with one of those inflatable balls a 3-year-old kid would have, and they just boom off his boot and straight over the bar, and seemingly no matter what the conditions are. And that's the same whether he's kicking from the ground or kicking out of his hand. I think the real thing for him in terms of really showing that consistent level, there's 2 things. The talent is there's no doubt about that. I think that Armagh would be a better team for the longer time he can spend playing in the full forward line, because that means you're able to get him the ball there regularly, and he's creating scores and getting scores for you. I think that as you get up in the levels to Ulster final level, All-Ireland semi-final level, you will see teams, even when he's playing close to goal, will have 2 and 3 men on him at times. And maybe one aspect of his game that he has to become more aware of is that when he finds himself in that situation, he has to realise he has no shooting chance, but there's a free Armagh man somewhere. So it's about getting that ball out to that free man as quickly as he possibly can. That's something that Michael Murphy has had to deal with throughout his career and got very good at it. And it's not a question of being selfish or unselfish. It's just about making the right decision for the team, whereas you're bottled up, find the free man. And when you look at the Armagh team with the outside shooters that they have, whether it's Rory Rugan, whether it's Aidan Nugent, all for players that can shoot. Niall Grimley coming off the bench, really good shooter. He has his brother Oisin, great shot on him as well. So if he's bottled up, he has those players that can help bring him to the next level, because that's something for him to be the most complete player he can be. He'll be able to show those things where he's an assassin and getting all those scores as well. But when he's bottled up and finding the right teammate to keep the scoreboard ticking over. But I think he can do that. I'm looking forward to really seeing him develop even further over his career. And I think there's big things in store for him this season for Armagh.
Sunday, definitely one to look forward to, Billy Joe. It's two of the best teams in the country at the minute, two of the most informed teams. Both looking to extend their unbeaten runs. And both an away game for both teams. The game's in Hyde Park, so that's Sunday at 2:00. And good luck to the under-20s as well. They're getting their league campaign started, because their game on Saturday was called off, so they get their league campaign with a home game against Westmeath. The Camogues are away to Cavan this weekend as well, and the ladies are at home to Cavan on Sunday. So we'll be covering all them games with match reports and previews as usual. Make sure to follow us on all social media pages and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, if that's where you listen to the podcast. Billy Joe, thank you. Really appreciate it. Great talking to you and previewing the game.
Sean, it's a pleasure being on, and I'm absolutely delighted you didn't ask me for a prediction, because I wasn't going to give you one.
Good man, Billy Joe. Cheers. Thank you.